Back in the 1950s, a Soviet scientist created a dog with two heads, a real, live Cerberus. But this one wasn't a myth, and both of them, both heads, were alive. When you hear the phrase Cold War, what comes to mind? Nuclear weapons and probably the space race. You know, the era of one small step for man. But something else was going on quietly. The Americans and Soviets were locked in a third race, described as a Macabre Surgical Arms Race. And even today, this one rarely makes it into the history books. Inside the laboratories where this race was happening, scientists weren't racing to reach the stars or build bigger weapons. They were trying to hack biology, redefine death, and find out if life is transferable, or rather, transplantable. To do that, they tried to take control of the brain and separate it from the body entirely. And whoever won would win the right to redefine the future of humanity. What really happened inside Cold War-era laboratories that ended in two-headed dogs, monkey head transplants, and one scientist's life's work to save the soul? And once you cross the line of separating the mind from the body, can it ever be put back? Join me as we unravel all this and much more and enter the Codex Legendarium. I'm Shelby Melanson. Welcome to part 1 of 2 of what might just be the most disturbing rabbit hole I have ever researched. It all started with a company called R3 Bio, the headlines it just started making, and something called organ sacs, and also bodies without heads. Yeah, I know, ew. But from there, I found out that the metaphorical labyrinth goes much, much deeper. So this week is part 1. The full twisted history behind how modern organ transplants started with a Cold War head transplant race. Next week, we're going all in on the weirdest parts about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein that I promise you haven't heard about yet. Spoiler alert, her dad was obsessed with necromancy. Plus, why a biotech startup wants to grow people minus the brain, and the philosophy behind why the idea is oh so disturbing to us. Also, thanks a bunch to Andrew for asking me to cover this one. You see, you guys ask, I listen. The year is 1908, just 90 years after Dr. Frankenstein and his monster captivated and disturbed the world. Little did most people know, in the outskirts of St. Louis, inside a quiet laboratory at the Washington University School of Medicine, a cardiovascular scientist named Dr. Charles Claude Guthrie was working on something similarly disturbing. In a series of medical experiments, Guthrie wanted to test how well he could reconnect blood vessels after they were severed, and how organ function would work after the procedure. To do it, he created something that, to me, sounds like an almost Cerberus. Yeah, we're gonna circle back to that one in a second. The two-headed dog. For all my dog lovers out there, you may want to cover your eyes starting now. In collaboration with French doctor and later Nobel laureate Alexis Carrel, Guthrie grafted a severed dog's head onto a body, specifically the neck, of a living dog. After the operation, even after going 20 minutes without blood flow, the transplanted canine head not only showed signs of life, but it could hear, see, and even had involuntary muscle movement. The same exact kind of reflex that makes your legs stick out when a doctor taps your knee. For the first time, a head could survive after being detached from its original body. But as you can imagine, the dog's hours, not days, hours, were numbered. The massive trauma from surgery, plus infection and immune system rejection, plus the fact that only blood vessels were reconnected, not the spinal cord or other nerves, meant that man's two-headed best friend was sadly put down soon after. Which, honestly though, was probably a kindness. In the few modern articles that talk about all this, it's praised as a success that basically laid the foundation for modern heart transplants. The American Association of Plastic Surgeons even gifted Guthrie its first ever award medal for his research. Over the next few decades, Soviet scientists caught wind of all these experiments and started their own. By the 20s and 30s, one of them succeeded in basically the same thing Guthrie did. His experiments showed that after removing a dog's head from its body, it could be kept alive for around 2 hours using extracorporeal circulation, meaning connecting the head to an external circulatory system to keep the blood flowing. The same thing that's used in modern heart surgery today. But the Kremlin scientists didn't really get its house of head-related horrors going until the 1950s. This is where the Iron Curtain comes in, the Cold War. Now, in effort to spare you the really, really grotesque parts, I am not going to show you the entire video of the actual procedure. But to paint you the full picture, and honestly, to emphasize just how demented all this stuff was, I'm going to show you the non-gory parts. To me, the most troubling part of this video is actually when you first see two dogs being introduced for the first time, happily sniffing and petting each other, but then the camera cuts, and you see the same two dogs, but this time laying on a hospital bed, covered in bandages, and now sharing a body. The image gets even more unbelievable a second later when 2 bowls of milk are brought into view of the camera, and both dogs, or I guess both heads, start eagerly lapping it up. Now, one point here. I cannot imagine how disorienting this experience must have been for these animals. 1 minute, everything is normal. The next, you take a nap, wake up, and you've been injected into the body of basically a Siamese twin. These dogs' fate was the work of scientist Vladimir Demikov. One of the dogs, or one pair of them, I don't even know at this point, you get the idea. One of them was quite literally named Cerberus, like we mentioned a second ago, after the 3-headed dog, aka guardian of the underworld from Greek mythology. And that name stuck so well that these videos became known as the Cerberus footage, spread as propaganda and celebrated as a sign of the Soviet Union's dominance over the US. Also, you guys are perceptive, so you'll notice in this video that despite the grainy footage, there are a variety of dogs seen in the video compilation. That's because these scientists did this quite a few times. But unlike Guthrie, the Soviets decided to see how long the animals could survive post-op. Judging from the way some of these animals look and act in the video, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say this was not a kindness. Based on records, the dogs survived anywhere from 29 days to just 4. The peak of the experiment didn't really come to pass until roughly 15 years later, and it happened on the American side. Neuroscientist Robert J. White of Cleveland, Ohio, had seen Demikov's work and decided to up the ante, from dogs to monkeys. Except his version was a little bit different. Unlike before, where one head was basically added on to the complete body of a separate dog, White performed a full head transplant in the more traditional sense, aka removing one monkey's head and replacing it on the original body with another monkey's head. To do it, he put the monkeys under deep hypothermia to preserve brain and tissue function, and then reconnected blood vessels and arteries after the separation. Much like the dogs, the first head-transplanted monkeys were conscious and could see, hear, and eat. But here's the thing. Reconnecting blood vessels in, say, the esophagus and trachea is one thing. Reconnecting the spinal cord and nerves is entirely another. In fact, it's so complex that not only could White not do it, even today, the most cutting-edge medicine cannot repair a fully severed spinal cord. Because of that, White's monkeys were paralyzed from the neck down. That means every single monkey that was experimented on, and from what I can tell, there were quite a few, at best, they lived with a life-changing, full-body injury. In other words, the mind survived, trapped inside a body that it couldn't control. Though they didn't for very long. The first monkey died from immune system rejection after 9 days. To be clear, a lot of these experiments were basically wiped off of common knowledge, even in the medical sphere. And in one sense, it's totally understandable why. Brandy Chalace is a medical historian who wrote a book about White's experiments after being given one of his old notebooks by a friend/neuroscientist. She also interviewed some of White's surviving relatives. In an interview, asked why most people don't know about the whole head transplant practice thing or about Dr. White himself, she said this, quote, "If you want to take heads off of people, that's upsetting to many folks. I think medicine doesn't really want to always be remembered for the slightly creepy things that it does. And let's face it, not everybody saw the utility of doing this work." That's a pretty clear and obvious reason, right? I mean, one of the most comprehensive articles on this whole saga, and by the way, there are not very many of them, is literally titled, "How the United States and Soviet Union Embarked on a Macabre Surgical Arms Race." And the truth is, the whole thing gets way creepier. A quick thing, her book is called Mr. Humble and Dr. Butcher, A Monkey's Head, the Pope's Neuroscientist, and the Quest to Transplant the Soul. Okay, you ready for some more creepiness? This is a quote from one of Dr. White's scientific papers, and I quote, "What has been accomplished in the animal model is fully accomplishable in the human sphere. Whether such dramatic procedures will ever be justified in the human area must wait not only upon the continued advance of medical science, but more appropriately the moral and social justification of such procedural undertakings." Boom. Okay? Later in 1999, he wrote this, which was published in the journal Scientific American. Quote, "What has always been the stuff of science fiction, the Frankenstein legend, in which an entire human being is constructed by sewing various body parts together, will become a clinical reality early in the 21st century." He goes on to say that at least initially, brain transplantation will really be complete head transplantation, as in the full head, not just the brain. And that, quote, "It is now possible to consider adapting the head transplant technique to humans." Okay, so dogs to monkeys to people. Yeah, okay. Personally, I am fine without that ever becoming a thing ever. However, what if there was more to it? Because here's where the story starts to go from profoundly creepy to really, really fascinating. You see, Dr. White wasn't just a doctor. He was also a devout Catholic and an advisor of medical ethics to Pope John Paul II. So, why would someone who believes in a higher power want to play God in this way? Doesn't this level of disturbing bioscience that literally involves surgically bringing about the painful deaths of sentient creatures through trial runs run a little bit contrary to that? And by the way, one more super creepy and also really sad point. Yes, these animals did feel pain during these experiments. I mean, that's kind of obvious, but there's proof. The Soviets did some really twisted things to test this out for sure, like applying citric acid to the mouth of a severed dog's head. The dog, which was alive and awake while literally severed on a table, responds to the acid by contorting its face and licking its nose and eyes. The same dog also flinches repeatedly when someone smacks the table with a hammer to test his hearing. Back to Dr. White, his ultimate goal wasn't to defy life and death, or create some kind of blasphemous Frankenstein's monster, or even to further life-saving organ transplant science. To him, transplanting a head was an effort to save the soul. Yeah, you heard me right. He famously stated that the brain is the physical repository of the human soul. Dr. White believed that the soul and human consciousness could be preserved by transferring the head to a new body if the body failed, presumably in the case of those who are terminally ill, or have a severe bodily injury, or paralysis even, via diseases like ALS, which impacted people like Stephen Hawking. Dr. White passed away in 2010 before achieving what he set out to do, though he did inspire others to take up the mantle, like Italian scientist Sergio Cannavaro and Chinese surgeon Xiaoping Ren. In 2017, they said they had found a volunteer patient who had a degenerative nerve disease, by the way, for the world's first ever human head transplant. Now, I absolutely can see the argument for developing new life-saving procedures, don't get me wrong. Basically no different than organ transplants save lives today. That said, the reason we aren't seeing head transplants is mostly because we cannot do them yet. For one, organ transplant patients have to take immune-suppressing anti-rejection drugs for the rest of their lives after the life-saving surgery. We have no idea how the body could react to its entire control center literally being uprooted and replaced, or how something as chemically sensitive and complex as the brain could possibly be affected by it. Would those same drugs even work? Secondly, the true deal breaker here is what we talked about before. Science is not yet up to the task of reconnecting a completely severed spinal cord. Right now, the best we can do is just help fix a damaged one. Now, back to the 2017 patient, he actually ended up canceling the whole thing in an almost Hallmark movie-esque style. That's because he met a girl, fell in love, and became a father to a healthy son that he calls his miracle baby. And he decided that he did have something to lose after all. So he canceled the whole thing, and the first ever head transplant never ended up happening. Honestly, if you ask me, and this is personal opinion, right, but this is the nicest possible outcome I could have possibly imagined this going down in. Definitely the most pleasant thing I found while researching for this whole video, and also, maybe this is just me, but it's rather poetic. What would have likely ended in a tragic, twisted end for a man seeking a better life was thwarted, i.e. saved, by love. Call me a romantic, but I like that thought. This whole thing obviously raises a lot of questions. How could we possibly do any of this ethically? Where would the bodies come from? Will today's organ donation turn into tomorrow's full body donation? Plus, other big questions like, is personhood tied to the whole body or just the brain? If the brain is moved to a new body, is it even the same being, entity, person? And are the brain and the mind even the same thing? Personally, I would say no on that last one. Also, remember we mentioned Frankenstein at the beginning of this episode, and also in the quote from Dr. White? I promise I didn't just bring that up for dramatic effect, even no matter how applicable it may be. Turns out there is a super weird backstory to the origins of sci-fi tied to Waking Dreams, a late-night conversation in Switzerland about electricity as a life force, and Mary Shelley's dad's obsession with the dead. I can pretty much promise you haven't heard this before. And all of that also ties in with a company that wants to grow headless bodies, and another company that says, forget the body, just upload your mind to the cloud and live forever instead. But, oh yeah, BTW, it's 100% fatal. Yeah. But for all of that, you're gonna have to wait for part 2. As much as I hate to leave you guys on a cliffhanger, this script is too long. So stay tuned for next week, the day you guys have affectionately dubbed Codex Tuesday. So, until then, what do you think? Is this the future of transplant medicine? Or is it the grotesque history that we should prevent from repeating itself? And if you've already seen what a company called R3 Bio has been up to lately, what do you think about it? I would love to hear your thoughts about all this in the comments, and if you have an idea for something you'd like to see a future episode on, let me know. And of course, if you enjoyed this deep dive into mysteries, myths, culture, and science, please take a second to like and share this video, hit the new hype button, whatever that does, and if you want to see more, subscribe. It really helps get the word out there. Until next time, stay curious and stay legendary. Thank you.